There are two types of people in this world, those who pay interest and those who collect it. To the ghost class, debt is a monster that lives under the bed. It's the credit card bill they can't pay, the car note that chokes them, and the student loan that feels like a life sentence. They are told that all debt is bad. They are told to cut up their cards and live in fear of the bank. But through the prosperity prism, I see a different reality. The 1% don't fear debt. They use it. To the elite, debt is not a chain. It is a power tool. It is a ladder that allows them to reach heights they could never achieve with their own cash alone. I'm George Stelling, and today we are breaking the debt trap. I'm going to show you how the wealthy use other people's money to build empires, while the poor use it to buy toys they can't afford. The vault is open. It's time to stop being the one who is borrowed from and start being the one who leverages the system. If you think debt is your enemy, you've already lost the war. Let's look at the math of the chains versus the ladders. What is bad debt? It is very simple. It is borrowing money to buy something that goes down in value. When you swipe that card for a dinner you can't afford or a pair of shoes that will be out of style in 6 months, you are committing financial suicide. You are trading your future life energy for a temporary high. Think about the math. If you buy a $1,000 television on a credit card at 24% interest and only pay the minimum, that TV ends up costing you $3,000. By the time you pay it off, the TV is in a landfill, but the bank is still eating your paycheck. This is lifestyle debt. It is the primary tool used by the system to keep the ghost class on the treadmill. As long as you owe the bank for your past, you can never own your future. Bad debt is a parasite. It eats while you sleep. It doesn't care if you're sick or tired. The interest clock never stops ticking. If you have bad debt, you are a servant to the lender, and a servant can never be an owner. Now, let's talk about good debt. Good debt is borrowing money to buy an asset that goes up in value or produces cash flow. Imagine you have $100,000. You can buy one house for cash. If that house goes up 10%, you made $10,000. But what if you use that $100,000 as a down payment for 5 houses, borrowing the rest from the bank? Now you own $500,000 worth of real estate. If the market goes up 10%, you didn't make $10,000. You made $50,000. You used the bank's money to 5x your profit. This is called leverage. The debt didn't make you poorer. It made you a multimillionaire faster. The 1% understand that the cost of capital, the interest rate, is just a business expense. If the bank charges you 5%, but the asset earns you 10%, you keep the 5% difference for doing nothing. This is arbitrage. This is how the big dogs play. Good debt is a ladder. It allows you to control more than you own. The ghost class is obsessed with being debt-free. The ownership class is obsessed with the spread. The spread is the difference between the interest you pay and the profit you make. If I can borrow $1 million at 4% and invest it into a business that returns 15%, I would be a fool to pay off that debt. Why would I use my own money when I can use the bank's money and keep my cash for the next deal? This is why the wealthiest corporations in the world carry billions in debt. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. They aren't broke. They are efficient. They borrow at low rates to fund high-growth projects. You must stop thinking of debt as a balance due and start thinking of it as fuel. If the fuel costs less than the speed it gives you, keep your foot on the gas. In the prosperity prism, we don't fear the loan. We fear the lack of opportunity. Part 5. The Tax Shield, 12:4, 15 Here is a secret the government doesn't want the prey to understand. Debt is not taxed. When you earn a salary, the government takes 30% before you can buy a loaf of bread. But when you take out a loan against an asset, that money is tax-free. If you own a building worth $10 million that has grown from $1 million and you sell it, you pay massive capital gains tax. But if you refinance it, take a loan against the new value, the bank gives you millions in cash and you pay zero tax. You can use that tax-free cash to buy more assets. This is the buy, borrow, die strategy used by the ultra-wealthy. They never sell their assets. They just borrow against them forever. The debt becomes a shield that protects their wealth from the silent theft of the IRS. While the ghost class is working for taxable dollars, the 1% is living on non-taxable debt. One group is playing a rigged game. The other group is the one who rigged it. Most people think wealth is a pile of money. The 1% know wealth is the velocity of money. Velocity is how fast your dollar moves from one asset to the next. If you use debt, your velocity increases. You put a down payment on a property, you fix it up, you refinance it to get your original money back, and you move that same money into the next property. You now own two assets using the same original $50,000. The debt acted as the engine that allowed your money to be in two places at once. The ghost class lets their money sit in a high-yield savings account, which is a lie. Their money has zero velocity. It's standing still, getting eaten by inflation. Your goal is to keep your capital moving. Use debt to pull your equity out and put it back to work. A dollar that sits still is a dollar that dies. I must give you a warning. Leverage is a double-edged sword. It makes you rich faster on the way up, but it wipes you out faster on the way down. If you over-leverage, if you borrow too much against assets that can't cover the payment, you are a ghost waiting to happen. The 1% always ensure their debt service coverage ratio is solid. This means the income from the asset must be significantly higher than the loan payment. If the rent is $2,000 and the mortgage is $900, you are one bad tenant away from bankruptcy. That is stupid debt. If the rent is $2,000 and the mortgage is $1,000, you have a margin of safety. That is smart debt. Never borrow more than the asset can comfortably pay back. The predator doesn't take risks he hasn't calculated. Respect the sword or it will cut you. Remember what we learned about the silent theft. Inflation destroys the value of the dollar. If you have a $500,000 mortgage at a fixed rate and inflation runs at 10%, the real value of your debt just dropped by 10%. The bank is losing purchasing power while you are paying them back with cheaper dollars. In a high inflation world, debt is a gift. You are essentially shorting the dollar. You are betting that the currency will lose value while your asset, the house, gains value. The ghost class is terrified of debt during inflation. The 1% is loading up on fixed-rate long-term debt because they know the government is going to inflate it away. When the currency dies, the debtors are the only ones left standing with the assets. If you are currently drowning in bad debt, you must execute an emergency extraction. You cannot build a ladder while you are wearing chains. You must stop the bleeding immediately. No more new debt. Use the debt snowball or the debt avalanche. But get those high-interest liabilities off your balance sheet. Every dollar you pay in interest to a credit card company is a soldier you are sending to work for the enemy. Once you are clear of the chains, your perspective will change. You will see a loan application not as a plea for help, but as a business proposal. You will walk into the bank with the predator mindset, knowing that they need to lend money to survive just as much as you need to borrow it to grow. I'm George Stelling, and I want you to stop fearing the bank. The bank is a tool. The currency is a tool. Debt is a tool. The only reason these things feel like traps is because you haven't read the manual. The ghost class stays broke because they use debt to look rich. The ownership class gets wealthy because they use debt to become rich. Check your ego at the door. Stop buying things to impress people you don't like. Start borrowing to buy freedom that no one can take away. Build your ladders. Break your chains. The vault is open, and the crossover is closer than you think. Subscribe if you're ready to master the tools of the 1%. I'll see you at the top.